All right, guys, if you remember my video from yesterday, I said that one of these tractors had major issues and we probably weren't going to be using it all this year. At this point, I don't know what to say. I'll get into that in just a second. As you can see, we had survived that winter storm. It's kind of everything's melting today. All right, so my 1952 Farmall Super C, that was my granddad's. Give you a little history again, just to recover a couple things. It was overhauled in 2001. We did an overhaul on this. The head was cracked. It had been overheated and cracked the head. We did an in-frame overhaul, and since then it's been used pretty. I don't want to say a lot, but it was one of my tractors when I was at the other farm. I did do a lot of moldboard plowing with this thing and some tillage work, and it was on the grain drill back when I was younger and kind of just playing around. So the other day I went to check oil in this tractor, and I don't quite know what's going on here, but I'll just show you guys kind of what the engine oil looks like here. And as you can see, what's running out there, that is definitely more than just engine oil. That is, to me, that color, that milky color, I have seen this before. That suggests that there's antifreeze in this engine oil in this tractor. So I'm glad I haven't run it a whole lot since, but I have some ideas on how we're gonna tackle this project, and it might be a little different than some of you guys might think, but I'll give you my reasoning on it here in just a second. But that doesn't look to be just engine oil. Probably I'm going to get a clean bucket and drop the oil out of this and kind of see. So we definitely have a problem. I don't know what would have happened because it wasn't run a whole lot. There is no water in this radiator. I know there isn't any water that it would have. I'm guessing it might have froze. This winter we had that -8-degree night, and maybe the antifreeze wasn't up to specs. I didn't test it. I know I was checking it, checking the levels before it got cold, but something's definitely going on with this engine, and I'm not exactly sure what, because when I had changed the oil over the summer, it was still black engine oil, and now that it's sitting here in the shed, basically through that cold winter, I'm thinking something must have frozen there. That's the only thing I can come up with. I never put water in. It was always the 50-50 mix, and I'm thinking maybe it wasn't quite up to standard. I can't remember the last time we put antifreeze in this tractor. It probably would have been in 01 when the overhaul was. So I'm not planning on using this tractor a whole lot. I wasn't going to use it a whole lot, and now I'm really not going to be using it a whole lot. Let me give you my thoughts on my some of my ideas on how to fix this tractor. I don't know. I have to do some more digging into it, but I'll give you some ideas in case it is, in fact, getting antifreeze in the engine oil. All right, guys, so I had some thoughts. Let me give you some history on the rebuild. When we overhauled this tractor and why I'm leaning towards doing what I'm planning on doing, what I'm probably going to do. When we overhauled this tractor, we did an in-frame, and the crankshaft in this thing is just about wore out. From 1952, when they bought this tractor, all the way through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and a little bit in the 80s, and a little bit in the 90s. This tractor was the main tractor. They did buy an Oliver 77, which did some of the field work. I know I've covered this before for anybody that's new. The Oliver basically did the baling. This little tractor was the workhorse. They didn't have a lot of money when they were milking cows, and this was even in the, you figure in the 60s, the Farmall 560s in 1960, that's what was available to them for sale, and they were still running this. Money is always an issue for any operation, and they just kept this tractor all those years to do a lot of the field work. So when we it was overhauled before, and I don't know how many times. When we took the bearings out, they were Chrysler bearings, so we knew it was overhauled at least once before, and Chrysler bearings weren't used in Farmall tractors that I'm aware of. So The crankshaft was at 30 thousandths, that we put 30 thousandths bearings in oversized, so this crank is just about finished. We didn't do the cam bearings when we did the in-frame, of course, because we didn't take the cam out, and it should have been done. It should have been done on that overhaul in 2001. We should have did an out-of-frame, because the camshaft isn't in the best of shape on this tractor either. It's wore down pretty hard along with the crankshaft. The head on this, I had said the head was cracked. We had put a head on from a different tractor. It was a used head that we got, and we should have got it planed. Again, this was a budget rebuild. We didn't have a whole lot of money. It still was over $1,000 for the overhaul, even doing it this way, for a tractor that isn't it is what it is. So we put a head on. We should have got the head planed because we had some issues with I don't want to say the head's warped, but it should have been replaned. We did have a little bit of issues with the antifreeze kind of seeping out at first, and maybe that's all that's wrong with this tractor. Maybe it's just the head, and the head gasket's blown. I don't know why, but why it would be, but it could be that head. But that still doesn't address the issue of the cam bearings being shot and the crankshaft. We're probably going to need a crankshaft. I wish I had had an hour meter. I know it got a lot of use from 2001 till today. I know it did, because there were some days it was plowing. Like I say, I had a 2-bottom Dearborn plow, and I had a couple 8-hour days of just plowing with this plow, and then when I was done, I'd put the drag disc on, and then I disc for a couple 8-hour days, and then I had a lot of time behind the wheel of this thing. It's probably not as many hours as I think. It never is, but it's probably not enough even to warrant another overhaul. But we do have some oil pressure issues with this tractor. When it gets very hot, when you're using it on a real hot day, the oil gets hot, your oil pressure backs off. That could have something to do with the poor cam bearings. I don't know. But anyway, this engine's kind of at the end. The other couple issues with the block that I know of, the oil pan, those studs that go up from the bottom, the oil pan, they're stripped. There's a whole bunch of them that are stripped under there, and we basically had to try to run a tap in to try to get new threads. Short of re-drilling it and putting bigger bolts in, there's probably 6 or 7 that are stripped, and they were when we overhauled it in 2001. So I'm sitting here trying to decide what I want to do if this does have antifreeze in the engine oil again. Like I say, I didn't run it that much, but I think I ran it enough that the bearings are probably chewed up a little bit. I don't know. We'll have to see. I can take the oil pan down and look, take a bearing down. But given all those issues, and the other thing that I'm looking at is the price of an overhaul kit and the time that it would take to overhaul this engine versus what these tractors go for, what you can buy these tractors for. I mean, this one here, probably you'd have a hard time getting $1,800 for it, depending on your market. It doesn't have a fast hitch on it. I don't know. It may be a little more if I cleaned it up and touched up some of the paint, but I see these little things going at auctions for anywhere from $300 on up. I think right now, given all the problems with the engine, like I say, if I do pull it apart again to overhaul it, I'm going to need to get a crankshaft probably. I'm going to probably need to get a camshaft. Just the expense of what's going to be involved to redo this tractor. I should get a head if I do it right. I should get a better head, or at least get this one planed. I don't think the valves were... I think the valve seats were pretty far down as far as... I think we ground the valves and there wasn't much clearance left. The valves are getting real flat. So I don't know. That was the head that we got. I think the valves, the head that we got was pretty well wore out. So I'm thinking of maybe looking around to see if I can't find another Farmall Super C with a half decent engine, and just switching the engines. If it's a tractor, maybe I can find something that maybe it has bad tires on it. Maybe it's something that has an other issue other than the engine that it would go cheap. And like I say, I'm probably just going to look at, see if I can't change the engine. We're going to be parts changers here instead of mechanics, just because on this project, for what I'm going to pay for an overhaul, I know what's going to be involved. I just know it. I know what the money is going to be, what the overhaul kit was, what the price was back in 2001 when we did it. And for what these things are selling for, it's kind of a no-brainer. I know some guys might have a different take on it, but I'm going to keep my eyes open for a Farmall Super C with a good engine, and then see if I can't pick it up, get it home here, and change engines. and then I'll be still further ahead because I'll have a whole parts tractor then, basically, for any other parts that I need. This going to need a clutch, so if the other tractor has a good clutch, then could be further ahead there. So it's a shame for it. I'm gonna see. I don't have a clean bucket handy, or I dropped the oil out, but you saw what it was running out of the fill, or the check valve there. So I don't know. It is my granddad's tractor. It's never gonna get sold. It's a piece of the family. It's a piece of my history. This thing has rumbled across our farm for years and years and years. It never left. It was always in the shed over there. So it has a lot of sentimental value, and I should, by rights, you'd think I'd want to spend a fortune on it to get it up to par, but it's just not going to be worth an engine overhaul to buy a new crank. I don't know what a new crank is. I'm sure they're $400 or $500. So if I can buy a whole tractor for $400 or $500, I think I'll be further ahead, just so I find one with a good engine. So I don't know, guys. Just some of my thoughts. You guys can comment below. Like I say, I don't need to. I'm not here to force my opinion on anybody. If you guys have any ideas or advice. The other thing is, I know there's a couple different engines that would fit in here that are a little bit bigger. I know some of the old International Gas combines had an engine that would fit in here. It's kind of endless as to what I can find and put in here. So got to keep my eyes open. Got to try to find something to do this. If it is that, I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure. At this point, I'm 90% sure. So all right, guys, I'll end the video there. Comment below. I'd love to hear your comments. I do read all your comments, and if anybody has any advice for me, feel free to comment. So that's where we're at. Looking for a Farmall Super C with a good engine at a reasonable price. And we're going to change the engine, I think.